A lot of people right now are really hating on this movie, giving it half stars and 1 star, but do I actually agree with them, and is it really that bad? Well, stick around and let's talk about it. When a group of friends recklessly violates the sacred rule of tarot readings, they unknowingly unleash an unspeakable evil trapped within the cursed cards. One by one, they come face to face with fate and end up in a race against death. The film stars Harriet Slater, Adain Bradley, Avantika, Jacob Batalon, Alana Bodine, Humberly González, and Larsen Thompson, and was directed by Spenser Cohen and Anna Halberg, and this is both their directorial debuts. Going into tarot, I saw the trailer for this many times, but honestly, I really never paid attention when I was in the theater. I usually would look at my phone. I would see a little bit bits and pieces, and that's just mainly because I really don't like to see a lot of horror trailers, mainly because they just give away too much. And actually, after I watched this movie, I went to go check out the full trailer, and honestly, they give away a lot of scenes in here, the death scenes, certain plot points. Definitely avoid the trailer if you can at all costs and go into it really fresh. Now, positives that I can say about this film is I did like Avantika in this. I think she's probably the best character here. I think her acting is pretty good. Some of the lighting in here I was kind of mixed on, but there are times in here where I really did like the lighting. There is this lighting when they have the lights with the hallway and it looks kind of dim at first, then it has a little bit of light there. And there's another part too where you have a character that is running away and the lights are slowly shutting off. There's another scene too in an elevator where they have this red lighting that was really good. There's a lot of jump scares in here. If you really like jump scares, there is a ton of them, and I think they do a pretty good job of actually advertising the fact that this is gonna have jump scares. This is definitely geared more towards the teenagers, and if they are looking to get scared here, I think they might actually get scared because it definitely does its job in the jump scares. However, I know that's going to turn some people off because, again, a lot of them are very telegraphed. You know exactly when they're coming, and sometimes they don't even wait. They just go ahead and just give you the scare right away. But I enjoyed that. Why do I say that, you ask? Well, we've had some mediocre PG-13 horror films this year. We had Night Swim, in which it was just a very mediocre film. The whole setting of the swimming pool was really great, but there was only a few horror moments here and there, and I just don't think they really capitalized on that pool aspect. Then you had Imaginary, and that film, there's nothing that happens until about the last 25 minutes of the film, and I feel like in this film there's always something happening. You may get sick of the jump scares after a while, but you have to understand this is marketed towards the teenagers, and I think this is one of those films that if I was watching this around that age, or even during high school age, because I did watch a lot of PG-13 horror films back in those days, I think I would be scared back in those days, but because I'm a very seasoned horror person, I watch a lot of horror films, yeah, I wasn't really scared in the movie, but I did enjoy the aesthetics. I enjoyed the different kinds of lighting that they had. Now, there were certain parts in here where, don't get me wrong, where the lighting was a little bit all over the place, where they would really kind of mask the creature and you couldn't really see them, and that may be because of CGI purposes, or just the way that they designed the whole creature that was coming after them. But I really did enjoy the aspect of kind of being on the edge of my seat a little bit of certain little scenes of where they were going to actually get killed off. But that doesn't mean that this is a perfect film. There are definitely flaws. The movie starts out with a bunch of group of friends. They have rented out this mansion. It's one of their friends' birthdays, and they end up finding this box of tarot cards in the basement. It has a zodiac sign on the box, and then they start gathering around in a circle, and you have one of the girls actually read out their fates of the tarot cards, and they talk about their horoscopes, which originally this was titled Horoscope. It's based on the 1992 novel of the same name. I don't know how it adapts to the screen here, but I would imagine it probably shares some things from that book, but I imagine that it's probably not as good as the book, I would imagine. I did like the look of these cards. I was definitely thinking, if they had a physical media release, that they would actually include those cards, because the look of these cards was pretty cool. But at the same time, watching a lot of horror films and just them kind of going over these cards, I was like, let me guess. I definitely understand where their fates are going to be after they actually talk about these cards. So on that aspect, it's definitely a negative, because you definitely know what's coming with these characters and their fates. We cut to the next day, and we finally get our title card about 10 to 15 minutes into the film, and I was like, this is really interesting. They usually don't do that for horror films, major ones, at least in the theater. So I was like, interesting way to actually start it off. Now, the characters themselves, they are so one-dimensional in this film. The only thing that we know is we know that a couple actually broke up recently, and apparently it was a nasty breakup. A lot of them didn't have a lot of personality. I think Avantika, she had a little bit, and I could buy into her acting. And then you have Jacob Batalon, who I was like, okay, he's been in the Spider-Man films. He's playing kind of the same role that he's played in the Spider-Man films. He's got that comedy relief. I didn't really laugh at his jokes. I kind of was like, he's kind of a cringe character in a way. I mean, I didn't hate his character, but I felt like he was playing the same character that we've seen obviously before. The deaths themselves, there's no gore. There's a little bit, a small amount of blood, which I think may have been CGI. And a lot of the characters, they go off and they are killed one by one, which really leads into the horror trope of, you know, if your friends are dying one by one and you know their fates are going to happen, maybe you guys should maybe gather together and not be alone. But time and time again, these characters are alone and they're killed off one by one. Now, a lot of the kills in here, they really cut away from a lot of the kills. There's one scene where I was like, man, if this film was R, this would be a really cool killing. I love the idea of it, but again, it cuts away, but you actually know it actually happens. They just don't actually show it. There is another scene in here that really reminded me of another film, which I didn't really like that film, but there were aspects that I liked, called Separation, where you have this guy that bends his back backwards and is really creepy in how he's walking. And there is a scene like that in this film, and the lighting and just the way that they actually show the faces. If you watch the trailer, you'll definitely understand what I mean. I thought that was very effective, and I love the lighting there with the red lighting with the elevator. Then we have our characters who do the horror trope of, you know what, we know how to solve our problems. Let's look on Google and find our problems. We'll look up why we're cursed, and we'll look for answers as to what we should do next, which again, you've seen that a lot in horror films. Later on, we get a lot of exposition. We get a lot of explaining and just very thorough detail of a lot of the happenings and the origins of this tarot box and the cards themselves, which is interesting. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely interesting, but we get a lot of that thorough explanation, which, I mean, we could have had a little bit of mystery maybe to it, maybe have us solve a little bit. I felt like a lot of it was just kind of given to us on a silver platter, and there's not a lot of intrigue to the mystery because it's like, we already know, you already told us. There is a lot of jumping from one location to the next, and a lot of times our characters have to actually travel to get to the next location. And I felt like this is one of those films where they're definitely traveling in the car a lot. They have to drive 3 or 4 hours to get to another location. There is some conveniences that they have, you know, when they're trying to, you know, unlock about these tarot cards and learn about the lore of it and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, there's definitely some conveniences along the way, and you can definitely sit there and pick it apart and be like, well, you know, there's this and there's that. You could definitely pick it apart in that aspect. As far as the score for this film, though, I would give it a 3 out of 5, and some people may be saying, what? You're giving this a 3 out of 5? Again, I compared this to Imaginary. I gave that a 1. It's not that bad. I compared it to Night Swim, and that was mediocre. I gave that a 2 out of 5. So I just think that this film, it's a little bit better than okay, because I think, again, it's gearing towards teenagers. It's gearing towards that PG-13 audience, and it has a lot of jump scares. You may not like that. A lot of the older adults may not care for that. I completely understand that, but that's what this film is trying to do. And again, I expected not a lot of blood or gore or anything because, again, it's PG-13, so it's definitely an expectations thing going into this film. There are people, again, that have been giving this half stars, and I really question those ratings if they're just trying to hate on the movie or if there's someone that really doesn't watch a lot of horror, because I can tell you right now, I've watched some really low budget horror, and I can tell you it's just unwatchable. And this film, it's not unwatchable. It definitely has a story where it's, you know, telling you everything all at once, but at the same time, its pacing was fine, and it never was boring. I never was bored at any point in this film, and I enjoyed it for what it was, but I understand and recognize that it has flaws. But let me know down in the comments, what did you guys think about this film? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you just think it was kind of meh? And if you haven't checked it out in a theater, are you going to check it out on streaming, or are you going to skip it altogether? Leave any and all comments down below. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.